freedom of Black people. And so listening earlier today, they were saying that, of course, everybody wasn't on board. And the one guy, I guess, who's being very vocal about it, they basically were saying that, he's like in the third tier of racing. So it's not like he's a premium, if you will, driver, like on the, Indy 500 or anything. But then kudos to the and so lone black earlier today, they were saying that, of course, everybody wasn't on board. And the driver, one guy, I guess, was being very vocal about it. They basically were saying that, he's like in the third tier of racing. So it's not like he's I'm getting feedback. But advocating on his own for the abolishment of the Confederate flag and other changes within NASCAR, which we know is definitely, if not 99.9% white, probably some of his family members are out there. And there's just not a huge audience of Black people. So I'm seeing what I'm calling, and I'm probably wrong, but this white cleansing, this white come to Jesus moment where you've got people like Justin Bieber saying, "Oh, I've been influenced by Black culture and by Black music, and now that I look back, I've never given any acknowledgement of that. So now he wants to cleanse his soul and basically say thank you." You got Ellen DeGeneres coming on saying basically the same thing. Not really a fan of hers, just because I always felt not that she exploited her Black host, but I always felt she acted so white when she would be interviewing them, and like she was white and they were Black, and so to me it was just very visible for me. So I really didn't enjoy watching her show, so I just basically stopped. I know she's got a lot of Black followers, and to each his own. Then we've got Under Armour coming out saying, our Black athletes, our Black community, our Black, people, we value you and we're going to make changes. And so now there's this white reckoning of corporations who are saying, gosh, we weren't really fair. Oh, and the biggest one that got me was the producer of the show Friends. And so now, after 20 years of putting those white people in our faces, now she decides, oh, I guess I could have done a better job on diversity. I didn't even give them one Black friend. So it's just interesting how this reckoning, this white reckoning and this white cleansing, well, as they're going through that process, guess what? We have endured not having jobs. We've endured not being promoted. We've endured not being on shows. And so the economic impact to our community has been great. So now that they feel good about themselves and, oh, I know I've done this thing for 15, 20, 30 years. Oh, I'm so sorry, Black America. I'll probably get over it, but I'm not ready for that. Not to hear that from them yet. It's too soon. So I think there needs to be, for me, more time for processing, because it's not going to be, oh, it's okay, Ellen. Oh, it's okay, Justin. Oh, it's okay, producer of the Friends show, where you didn't have not one friend for the whole link, not even the reunion show. I mean, you can even find a Black person to serve coffee. So I think I'm good on all this white cleansing of their souls and all this, reckoning. So we will see what happens. And another thing, while I'm on my soapbox, the nail salons. And so we're going to talk about those being closed. Well, they don't pay into our communities. They don't go to any of our restaurants, Black owned. They don't go to any stores in our communities. They drive in, they make their money, they bring their own lunch, they bring their own food, they bring their own snacks, and they drive back out into the suburbs. So I really wish, people would really think about that, because we have some onus on our economic empowerment as well. and to continue to support entities, organizations, and institutions that do not support us and do not even think about our economic empowerment, I think is shame on us. And so, and I think I say this every show, we've got to assume, some responsibility. And there's a lot that we can, and there's a lot that we can't. But just as we continue through this process of what's going on right now, the current events, and the like I said, the reckoning of racism. I mean, we all know it. There's not one Black person exempt, although you do have some who think that they are exempt. However, I think they know in their heart of hearts, no, you're not exempt from being Black in America and experiencing racism. That's how America was built, and that is how it has been. So it is interesting to see this, just everything that's going on right now. I will say, not so much that I'm encouraged, but it is encouraging to see that kids and most of them, I believe, who are of voting age, uh, can now take their power to the vote and make changes in their cities. The other issue, now that I remember, is I would like to talk about is a good point that I think one of the protesters, don't ask me what city because they always show the cities and I don't really pay attention in the upper corner on who the city is. But it was the issue of, yeah, the police are arresting, but when they arrest and they go to jail, now you're in the judicial system. Now you've got the prosecutors. And so now they're looking at the prosecutors. They're looking at the judges, who are giving these long prison terms for, traffic, your light on your car not working. So now we're getting a look at the whole system of injustice, the whole system that has worked against Black community, the Black community for years. I know the local prosecutor here is under fire. I know that I personally have voted no for any judge to continue to sit, because if they've been sitting in that seat for more than 10, 15 years, it's time for them to go. Not only that, we as the Black community need to be making ourselves more educated and informed on which judges are giving the longer sentences, which judges are fair. So that information needs to be out so that we're making those good choices and not just voting yes on the ballot when you see that judge's name, just because we haven't taken the time to educate ourselves to know who has been fair to our community, who has not been fair, and who needs to be taken out of that chair to stop bringing, bad judgment on the Black community and specifically our Black men. So I wanted to definitely get that out. As you see, I'm still killing time. Hopefully the guest will join us here at 5:30. That was his goal to join at that time. And so I wish at some point I can have a call-in show. I am looking into that because this would have been a good time, basically, to take a call from a listener and for me to have an exchange with them. So I am working on that. Not sure how that's going to work, but I did look up or looked into it from last week because I wanted, or the week before, the opportunity for people to call in to the show. So we'll see. So yeah, so I'm really motivated by what's going on. And as everybody's saying, and I did enjoy the last service, the eulogy of Al Sharpton for George Floyd. And oh gosh, the analogy he gave, and I can't remember the scripture he gave it from, it was basically saying that his life was not in vain. I do believe, I am a believer, Christian believer, and I do believe that God is in control. And I strongly do believe that George Floyd had a purpose, and his purpose was this movement. his purpose. I mean, it's a global movement. You've got, the kids in Berlin. You've got the black kids in London, Switzerland. I mean, this is global, and this movement is happening in his name, and his name represents, as I said before, so many people, unfortunately, before him, who were brutalized, murdered, and killed by the police. Um, Seeing that these systems are coming apart, they're unraveling. Minneapolis police saying, no, we're not going to go into contract negotiations with the, what is it, with law enforcement, with their union. He's saying, no, that's part of the problem, that these police officers get protected by the union. And, we can say the same thing, unfortunately, for the teachers union. We've got bad teachers that school systems and principals cannot get rid of because they are protected the by the teachers union. And so I think these times are going to really start a lot of courageous conversations, a lot of uncomfortable conversations that need to happen and they need to take place. And what people need to appreciate, I think, is that it's going to be about change, and change for the better. It's going to be about reform of the police policies and procedures. It needs to be about reform of education. We know that definitely the way that education is looking is changing, and we don't know how this fall is going to look yet. Are we going back? Is going to be blended, meaning it's going to be online, offline. When you come to school like every other day, only so many people. So school systems are still trying to figure that out. I had a chance today to attend Central's high school graduation. And again, they had to, rethink that. And there was only 10 students allowed at a time. They had different groups set up. That's why I got my Central shirt on. Not that I'm a graduate of Central, but with my close ties there. And only the up to four family members could attend. And superintendent was there, the principal was there, students got their diplomas, got to walk across the stage. So it was, what it usually is, if you will, under normal times, just not with the crowds. But I thought they did a really good job on managing the way that it was organized, getting this in, getting this out, and then the next group coming. So only point there. So that changed the way that graduations, and different districts are doing different things, being creative and just trying to do the best that they can to give the seniors some semblance of their senior year. I don't want to use the term that a lot of people have saying, but I would say since COVID hit and changed the way that the rest of their senior year played out, was a major effect on a lot of students. And some districts have done a real excellent job of being creative and having students come back, walk through the halls with a mask on, but with their cap and gown, teachers standing in the doorway, greeting them on. So the students are able to see all of their teachers for the last time. I forgot what school district did that, but I thought it was such a neat idea. Doing the drive-by graduations with the cars and procession and posters and everything on your car. In fact, I saw one the other day. It said, "I'm a 2020 graduate in spite of you, COVID," or something. "I'm proud in spite of you, COVID," something like that. But it was shaved on her car. So right now I feel like I'm just rambling, waiting on my guest to come. I really hope he can get here because I have a lot of good questions for him, and I'm looking forward to what he's got to share about the district that he works in and what the students there are doing. So again, I would love to have callers call in. I know I've said a lot, and I would love to have questions and see what people are thinking and comments. So again, I will be working on that to see how I can get that integrated into the show.
Your guest has arrived.
Yay! Hello?
He's connecting.
Okay. All right. Looks like he is connecting and I am saved.
Is that a Central shirt?
It sure is. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Fine. They have the show's been on since 5. And I just been rambling here. But yeah, they had
Oh,
their graduation today. And so I
oh,
support 2 of my students who I still work with. And
okay.
yeah, so my guest is Dr. Anthony Lewis, Superintendent of Lawrence Public Schools. And how are you today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah. So the show is called DigiSys in a Digi World. And I usually primarily talk about K through 12 technology issues related to Black students in the urban core. Make a
Okay.
about that because somebody's got to talk about it.
Exactly.
Um, so I have kind of gone, well, I've talked to different family structures. I
Hmm.
talked to my mentee who has been working with her siblings, doing their school schedules. I've
Right.
talked to mothers that have more than one child on a different grade level and talk about how they manage that home schedule and structure and all that good stuff.
Hmm.
And so today we're talking about the protest because it's in front.
Hmm.
And so I did my history or did my research rather, and I
Okay.
Lawrence Public School students are they're protesters. They're not
Oh yeah.
shy.
Not at all. Not shy at all.
February 2018, they had a protest on school safety. April 2018 on gun violence. September 2017, a sit-in for sanctions against the student athletes who mocked transgender people.
Mhm.
And then more recently, with you, June 2nd, Black Lives Matter.
That's right. That's right. You
I
know.
love it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things we teach our students to advocate. We teach our students to first of all research and understand different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
But then, most importantly, exercise your right, your freedom of speech right. Exercise your right and voice your opinion. When there's someone that either has done harm to you or a fellow classmate or someone else in the city or county or just another human being.
Right.
We definitely teach them that, and we do not limit them whatsoever. We just allow them to peacefully protest.
Okay. So the students organized that June 2nd march.
That was organized actually by a KU student
Okay.
in Lawrence. Of course, KU is here in Lawrence, but many of my scholars were out there as well protesting.
Okay. And so, what I wanted to talk about was as a school leader, how does this fall look? How do you support the student protest concerns when school starts back up?
Yeah. Okay. So I tell people, obviously before George Floyd, we were thinking about and still are thinking about, how we start school with COVID-19. While we're still doing that, now we have to think about how we're starting school, understanding these racial tensions that are going on. I'll often say it's we have to fight a pandemic and police, you know, and we have to fight, this entire racial tension. And I was telling someone earlier today how I wish that I had my students in school during this time.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, we're beginning to plan ways that we can engage them, this summer, because just as all of us are experiencing different emotions at different times, we need to process that. We need to talk about that. And while we definitely appreciate our families at home, we just want to make sure that we're providing spaces and opportunities for our students, teachers, and any other community members to come together and process together and get comfortable being uncomfortable and then move forward.
Yep. Those courageous conversations.
That's right.
I moderated one last Friday,
Okay.
and it was good. It was diverse group of people, and it's just like you said. It provides an opportunity and for them to people to ask questions, people to vent,
Mm-hmm.
to if they have something emotional. And there were like 2 people, to the young black guys. Who were just a little bit emotional, just explaining or just trying to say what they go through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's good that those conversations are ongoing.
Yeah, and one of the things we do in our district, and have been doing so for, I guess, the past 10 years is all of our staff goes through Beyond Diversity training.
Okay.
Glenn Singleton's work, Courageous Conversations Around Race. They all
Mhm.
go through 2-day training. Obviously, that training may look a little different in a virtual setting come this fall, but they go through that training, and we've also trained some students in the past to have those courageous conversations.
Mhm.
And so, while we're not there by any means,
Right.
I think we have a structure and a foundation and a protocol to have those conversations.
Yeah. The other thing I want to ask you about, because I know that that's good, but how does I know there was a young lady on the news yesterday, and she's been a white young lady participating in some of the protests,
Hmm.
and she was saying, I guess she goes attend school in a suburban district, and she said, "Why is it that I am, you know, just like meeting more black people?" And so
Hmm.
she said, I don't know if it was intentional by my parents or just me being in my community, but she was saying, just kind of like a realization, like, like she felt she was closed, uh,
Right.
not so much shelter, but just not connecting as she probably could have. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So obviously, there are organizations that are around town. One that I can think of right now is called Suburban Balance. I don't know if are you
Hmm.
familiar with Suburban Balance?
I'm familiar, yes.
Okay, so it allows students those spaces, those affinity spaces, to see other students that look like them. You know, even in our school, one of our high schools, we have two large high schools, about 18 and 1900 students in those schools, and there was actually a racial incident that occurred earlier part of this school year, and the students organized and they engaged adults, all the adults in the building, and other fellow students around conversations about race. As a matter of fact, it was called "Racism Will Not Divide or Define Us." And so they were having these conversations. And one of the students, I remember one of the students sharing with me when she was looking around the room, she said, "I didn't know we had this many black students in this school." you know, and so I think we just have to do a better job of creating those affinity spaces with more intentionality, so our students could process and not only that, just have some conversations with some different perspectives. So we were on the planning stages of having our first ever, um, I guess we didn't come up with the name of like a teen conference for just students of color in our district. But
Hmm.
obviously, COVID-19 happened, and so we'll look to plan something like that for next year. But there again, for that simple purpose of having them just kind of share their lived experiences during the day.
Hmm.
To know that there's someone else that unfortunately maybe experiencing some of the things that you're experiencing, and providing those strategies to them. But most importantly, we just need to listen to our students.
Can you tell me, now that you kind of brought that up, what is the current ratio of teachers of color, I guess, or specifically Black teachers in your school district?
Hmm. Yeah. So, and I wish I would have had this. I would have gave you the exact figures because that's something that we've been working on. As a matter of fact, as a part of our strategic plan. So there's some intentionality around that. Without looking at the figures right here in front of me, I would say maybe 4%, and I may be off. It's a small percentage of Black teachers
Hmm.
in our district, um, and maybe 9% now. Maybe it was 4% a couple of years ago. So we have been making gains, incremental gains throughout the year. One of the things that um, I would hear in this district and in other districts as well is we just can't get any people of color to apply to come here. You know, well, and I told him, I said, well, look out the window. You're not going to see a line of people of color, lined up to come to the district. We have to go to them, and that's outside of the state of Kansas, outside of the state of Missouri. And so, one of the things that we've started doing is going to HBCUs to recruit teachers
Hmm.
of color. We are our own recruiters. Our staff is our own recruiters.
Right.
Word of mouth. Um, the Amplify conference. I think I saw you at the Amplify conference. Although I love that conference and I'm going to go every single year, I'm taking business cards with me. I was recruiting, So we go into those spaces, whether it's on social media, just making connections with people to recruit. Not only is it important for our students to see someone in front of the classroom that looks like them, it's also important and equally or more important for them to see a leader in a leadership role that looks like them. I think my first year here, we had maybe two principals of color, administrators of color in our buildings. Um, this year, I think that increased to four or five administrators of color. I was just talking to one of my principals today. She just hired another teacher of color at her high school. So we are actively seeking with intentionality to hire, to recruit and hire. But not only that, a lot of districts do a good job of hiring teachers of color, and I'm speaking specifically districts that have a majority of their teachers who are white or non-teachers of color. But they also struggle, and we do too, struggle with retention of teachers of color, because for the most part, and this research supports this, if you're a black male teacher in a building, you're burned out very quickly for the simple fact of you are viewed as a disciplinarian in the school. Mm-hmm. You know, if anyone is having problems with their kids, they'll send them to Mr. Jones' room. You know, so I think we have to do a better job of, now that we've recruited them and hired them, how do we retain them? And one of the ways we do that here in Lawrence is provide there again, affinity space for our educators. We have what we call a staff of color group that meets monthly, you know, and sometimes we talk about school related things. Sometimes we don't intentionally talk about school related things, but just to have that, again, affinity space for our educators of color to talk about the stresses of being potentially the only educator of color in the building.
Right. So I've been following you, and I love following you. And so you made a quote, I think on Twitter, it could have been at that March, leadership is not timid. Mm-hmm. And so you've given two great examples of how you have opened up those spaces for your students of color, your administrators of color, to have an opportunity to talk, to vent. I mean, because that's what's going to keep them. That's what's going to, you know,
right,
keep them at your school. And so I appreciate you for that, because I definitely, when I saw that, I was like, man, that's why I like him. That's why I'm following him. You know, like I said, I've seen you at Amplify conference as well, and then even there with a table of your people, with a table of your school administrators, teachers, whoever. I believe 2 years in a row.
Yes. I asked Corey. Obviously, when I was in Kansas City public schools, I was attending Amplify, and then when I moved to Lawrence, I asked Corey, you know, if I still could come, because I'm now in Kansas, and she said yes. And then I pushed it a little farther. I said, "Can I bring some people with me?" And she said yes. And we got a bus 2 years in a row, and came up there again. And comments I heard from them is they've never seen anything like that. You know, because typically they get together here in their group as a staff of color, but to see a room full of Black excellence, a room full of educators of color, I think just rejuvenated them. I mean, it was like that revival experience when you left there, and so they were really appreciative of that.
Right. So one thing I wanted to mention to you, if you already don't know, is about the Teaching Black History Conference.
Okay.
And I'll be sending you the information. It'll be July 24th through the 26th. It started out actually at your alma mater, MU Columbia.
Okay.
In fact, I tried to get him on the show today. He couldn't make it because I wanted you speaking and then him speaking about. I'm gonna have him on next week. His name is Garrett King, and oh my gosh, I went. It's been in Columbia for the past 2 years. It was supposed to be in Kansas City this year, but COVID, and so here's. But he brings in. I mean, he does a call for proposals. People were, I mean, New Jersey, Los Angeles, I mean, all Black educators just coming in, talking about strategies on how to teach K through 12.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I will definitely let you know about that. So
yes,
if you want,
please do.
Yeah, to attend that conference, that is definitely a good conference for them to attend, because we know that's missing. I did a presentation last February on Blacks in technology. Talk about the contributions of Black inventors, mathematicians, scientists, you know, the Black woman who came up with call waiting, Oh gosh, my favorite friend Mark Dean, I believe it is, and he's the one that came up with the. It's called It's a Bus Technology, but it's what allowed for peripheral devices to be hooked up to a computer, so that
Oh,
you can
okay.
hook your. I mean, this is before wireless, but just to plug your keyboard in or your mouse into a computer.
Right.
He led a team at IBM that came up with that, and he's
Mhm.
responsible for all these patents.
Right.
So I had several people coming to me afterward, like, why didn't we know about this? How come we don't know about these people? Well, we know why.
Hmm.
Our
Hmm.
countries are not in schools.
Yeah.
So, can you talk to me a little bit about that and what you're looking at, or would you like to see within your district?
Yeah, I would definitely like to see, and there again, this is in our strategic plan around curriculum and our
Mhm.
students being able to see themselves in the curriculum. You know, I may not be able to see someone that looks like me in front of the class, but at least when I open this book or when I engage in this resource or this activity, there's some relevance there, so there's some connection there. But the first thing we have to do is look at our existing resources and seeing, are they perpetuating institutional racism? Are they contributing to a student not wanting to come to school because first time I open a book and see someone like me, they're in chains or in shackles, you know, and in the state of Kansas, you it's possible for a black student to learn about slavery in, I think it's sixth grade, or I can't remember the grade, and then one or two grade levels later, you're learning about the times of pyramids, and for one, that's not even chronologically in order,
True.
right?
Right.
And so we have to look at things like that. So one of the things that we created here in this district is a culturally responsive resource tool, which we use to take all of our resources, all of our textbooks. If there's a video that our teacher wants to show, we take those through there, and it engages teachers in a series of questions. And it's not just a checkbox thing that yes, I took this through that, but the goal is to get teachers to begin to think about that through every piece of literature they put in front of students, every activity they engage students in. Is this resource perpetuating institutional racism? That may be one of the questions, but it takes them through a series of questions. Um, and so that's just some of the things that we're doing in Lawrence to make sure that there again, our students are seeing themselves in the curriculum, in the lessons. Yes, we have African American studies elective classes, but we have to be a little bit more intentional about the resources that we select. Give an example. For a number of years, uh, there again, we're no different from any other district. Um, teachers were using Huck Finn
Mm.
uh, to teach satire.
Right.
And if you're familiar with that book, the number of times, over 200 times, the N word is used in that book. And we actually had a committee that was formed to talk about how to use the resource. And when I learned about that, I said, first thing we're going to do is disband that committee because we're not going to use the book.
Right.
We're not going to get in the habit of banning books, but we're not going to use that book and expose our children to that N word over 200 times. And it
Right.
only took one conversation that I had with one of my students of color, and she was telling me about being in that class the previous year, openly discussing classmates that are white reading out
Mhm.
loud, and she just began to bawl, just cry. I said, "That's it. We're not going to do that. We're not going to subject our kids to that." And so, needless to say, we're no longer teaching that book.
Well, good. And so, did you get any pushback? I'm just curious.
Well, you know, we have some amazing teachers here that believe that that was the only or one of the few, probably the only tool to use to teach satire, but we just had to get some other resources.
Right.
So a little pushback because, you know, this is a book that we've always been using to teach satire, but we just a little pushback, I would say.
Yeah. So, if you remember or not, that I am a K through 12 STEAM educator.
Yes.
And I am actually writing my own curriculum called Culturally STEAMed.
Oh,
And
okay.
that will be integrating Black history with science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And again, celebrating uh, the innovators, the um, you know, contributions of
Hmm.
Black in STEAM.
Okay.
So I mean, COVID just really, had a major impact. I actually had my whole game plan done for this
Mhm.
year. I had Blue Valley Caps had already started working on the website because it's going to
Oh
be a
wow.
subscription based site. So that got shut down. With that prototype they were creating, I was going to go to SREB in New Orleans,
Mm,
exhibit there, and get the input from educators, and keep
right.
on it, modifying it. Then I was going to launch this fall. So now I am just going to just kind of write it on my own, and I probably will attend AMLE, American, but I forget what it stands, middle school something.
Okay.
But it's going to be in Maryland in November, and so
Okay.
it's a
Okay.
middle school conference, and they get like
Right.
3 to 5,000 people. So I'm going
Hmm.
to do that. But
Okay.
so stay tuned because I
I'll
need
be on the lookout for it.
pilot sites for
Oh yeah.
and would definitely like that. So, what are you reading? I know you're a big reader. What's your summer
Right now, How to Be an Anti-Racist.
read? Okay,
That's one that I'm reading. Um,
okay.
and I was given that book probably 2 months ago. I sit on the Kansas African American Affairs Commission, and we were gifted that book. I had heard about it and was intending to buy it, and
Mhm.
obviously, with the past few weeks, was a little bit more urgency there to pick up that book. So
Right,
yeah, it's truly helping me in my role as we continue to dismantle and disrupt systems. Because one of the things that Ibrahim talks about in that book is just spelling it out and saying it out. We talk about institutional racism, um, but put another way, that is simply racist policies, racist practices. But who makes those racist policies and racist practices? Racist people. And so, yeah, I'm probably about halfway through the book, but it's really good. And I just noticed it. I think he tweeted something yesterday. It's the number one bestseller on the New York Times.
yeah.
And I think if you look at that New York Times, maybe the top 20, they're all, well, not all, but the majority of books dealing with some form of race
Right,
relations.
right. And I was gonna say, oh gosh, lost my thought just that fast.
Uh-oh.
Um, what do you think about? I don't know if you have any. If you've seen like I call it the white cleansing, the white reckoning. Oh my gosh, I've been racist.
Uh,
Oh, that was a comment that you made. It's the people who are racist, and I think you and I can see them, but I don't think they see themselves because they think just because they're talking to us that, oh, they're not racist, but then we see their behavior, we see their practices, what they do and
yes.
what they don't do, um, which
Yeah.
is all covert, and we
Hmm.
definitely experience, covert racism. But the reckoning with the producer from Friends, I was talking about
Hmm.
that in the show. Oh my gosh, I didn't even have anybody Black on. I
Yeah.
feel so bad. Under Armour,
Yeah.
Black athletes. I guess I didn't promote enough people. We're looking at diversity strategies. Now I'm thinking, okay, Justin Bieber. Oh, I've been influenced by Black culture and Black music, but I don't think I've ever gave recognition. I want to
Right.
start recognizing. Okay, well, fine. You all have made your money.
Hmm. Hmm.
Meantime,
Right. Right. Exactly.
what, I mean, what do you, what, I mean, you see what I'm saying? I mean, and
Yeah.
so you say it's yes, it's institutions, they're racist. Yes, it's this, it's that, but it's still the people.
Exactly. Exactly. And when I say we, Black America has been saying this for so long, and it's almost like, my time as a principal, I could share, some expectations with my teachers and what I wanted them to do 100 times, but then I can invite a guest speaker in. They can say the same thing, and teachers will say, "Oh, now I get it." It's almost similar to that. So it took George Floyd's death to almost, and it was seriously almost like a flip of a switch.
Mhm.
Oh, I have been doing this, or I have not been doing this. Um, NASCAR, that was a huge one for me. I'm from Talladega, Alabama, Talladega Super Speedway, and
Okay.
my grandfather was a sheriff's deputy there, and he would obviously work the race for like 30 years, and we would go out there sometimes, and the large Confederate flags all over the place, and still to this day, Confederate flags at NASCAR races. But for NASCAR to come out and say we're going to ban um, Confederate flags, although I'm, you know, uh, experiencing several emotions there, you know, because this is something we've already been saying, but it's almost to a point of, okay, if it really took this, obviously George Floyd's death will not be in vain. For people to just now realize what has been going on. And I've been overwhelmed with people reaching out, you know, almost what can I do? You know, help me, you know, which is good. And while it can be exhausting, you know, I have to have, and I would tell the listeners, give yourself some time to say no. You know, give yourself permission to say no, or some time to just disconnect and process on your own for a while before engaging in those conversations about what is it that my white ally can do. Because we need our white allies, we need our white co-conspirators, we do need them, but allow me that time to disconnect and just practice some self-care before I engage in that conversation. And I've talked to some of my other Black colleagues, and they've been gifted bottles of wine or other things from their white colleagues. It may be, the intention may be good, but like I said, this is something that it's not new to us. You know, this is our lived experience. We see it and hear about it and are constantly saying the same thing all the time. But it seems like I said, it seems like a switch was flipped, and almost like the Booker T. Washington's unveiling, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost like the veil has been taken off.
Right. And you reminded me of that sign that was right behind you, which I had been saying for a while. I'm tired. I'm exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm exhausted of being Black. It's tiring.
It is.
Those microaggressions and that covert racism is very taxing, you know, emotionally, physically, mentally. But yeah, that was like right behind the
being Black. I think it said being Black is exhausting.
Yes, and I totally agree on that. Well, all right, Dr. Lewis, we're getting down to the end of the show here. Any final comments or suggestions or anything to share?
Yeah, I'm probably the eternal optimist. I do believe through every tragedy or through every unfortunate circumstance, there's great possibility. And I just do believe that this may be the wake-up call. Obviously, some people are going to continue their beliefs no matter what happens, you know, but I think that as a school system, there's a lot more that we can do, because I go back to, and I try not to remember the officer's name that had his knee on George Chauvin. Yeah. But I go back to, he was once in a classroom. Mm-hmm. He was once in a desk in a school. Mm-hmm. You know, where did his school system miss the mark in terms of engaging in conversations around acceptance of someone who doesn't look like you, or if there was any racist acts or behaviors that were exhibited from him or any other student, how could that have been used as a learning opportunity? And so that's something that we take serious here in Lawrence. Now, no longer will we sweep things under the rug. If it needs to be called out, it will be called out. The incident I was mentioning earlier, a student had wrote the N-word in a swastika on social media, and he engaged with Black students and had, and processed with them, right. You know, and so what came of that is continued conversations about race. And I think what we're hoping to come from that is, you're familiar with student council that are at high schools. We're looking to have an equity advisory council that will act similar to student council, so we can address these issues head on, because, you know, we're responsible for more than teaching them math, science, social studies, reading, English. We have to teach them how to be caring adults, caring human beings, and caring means that I'm caring for everyone, and even those that may not look like me or that I don't agree with. And so I would just say that, and encourage listeners, and whether you're Black, none, or white, or no matter what your race is, have those conversations with relatives, neighbors, obviously your kids. You know, I sent out a statement on June the 2nd to all of my families and all of my staff, and I spelled out, you know, and I proclaimed Black Lives Matter. Right. You know, and I've been overwhelmed with more than 100 positive replies from parents and staff members saying, thank you for saying this. Mm-hmm. But then there were a handful of individuals that chose to reply and say all lives matter,
Mhm.
or you shouldn't be making statements like this in your position. You're being a racist or you're being divisive. And that just lets me know that as the lead educator here in this city, I have more work to do in terms of educating the public.
Right. And just like you said, it's not going to be on 100%,
No,
and
no,
that's just the rule of life. So that's not, a big deal. But that is the difference also that I appreciate. We're not doing, all lives matter, blue lives matter,
right,
this, that. No, it's Black Lives Matter, because you
exactly,
see videos of any other race with the police knee on somebody's neck.
exactly,
It's only black. So
exactly.
it is about Black lives.
It is, it is.
Well, Dr. Lewis, I appreciate you. I appreciate the time you took.
No problem at all.
Your car. You're inside your office, looks like.
Yes, I'm in my office.
Okay. And yeah, like I said, you're doing great work there. And I just when I looked it up, I was like, oh wow, look at these Lawrence students like to protest and sit in, and I love it. So
Yeah.
they're there, huh?
Oh yeah, they are, and we're proud of them. We are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, all right. Well, I will send you the information about the Teaching Black History Conference.
Okay.
24th through the 26th. LeGarrette King, who is, I believe he teaches down at MU, but he'll be on next week. So you can
Okay.
listen if you've got time, or I can
Yeah.
send you the recording. But so you can ask him. I don't have Colin yet, so I'm working on that where people
Okay.
can call in and ask questions. But I will definitely make sure you get the information so you can get your teachers there.
Please do. Please do. And again, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate the time.
No problem. We have to have a voice. We
Yes.
don't. And my thing is, hey, if I can use my time
Hmm.
in technology to give people like you and other people a voice that can be heard about
Hmm.
things again that affect our kids and other kids, then that's what I want to do.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Talk to
All
you
right.
another
All right. Bye bye.
time. Bye. All right, Mr. Walker.
All right.
So
Yes.
it says time remaining. So it goes past the 40 minutes, or how's that work?
Well, no, you were on there without. It wasn't three of us on there before, so we it worked out great.
Okay, good.
So doesn't normally do that, but the way it was set up, we did go good with it. So, thank you. It was a very enlightening show. I hope everyone listening really enjoyed it, and we're gonna get ready to call this a wrap.